Welcome to the Crypto and Blockchain Talk.
Hello.
Hey.
Guten Tag.
Aloha.
Hola. Shalom.
Hello.
Namaste.
Ni hao.
Privet.
Hello.
Salut. Yassas.
Salve.
Ciao.
Bonjour. Our podcast talks about the latest trends in the worlds of cryptocurrencies and the blockchain. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Crypto and Blockchain Talk. And today with me, I have Andrew Antar, who is the co-founder of a new project called Tunefm. And this is basically a brand new NFT project, but we are going to find out all about it. But before we do, we are going to welcome Andrew. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on to Crypto and Blockchain Talk.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me and happy to be here. It seems like you guys have quite the following in the space, so.
Well, we do.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is that there are so many podcasts, and who knows, maybe one day somebody will figure out a way to make this space even into an NFT. Who only knows? We started out with NFTs growing big in the art space. Obviously, we all know that music is an offshoot or within the same Venn diagram of art. Well, I have a theory about how you developed this platform, and I just want to see if this is true. So from what I understand from your bios, you and your brother is a co-founder, his name is Brian. So you and Brian are both not only these incredible software developers, but you're also violinists. Is that correct?
That's right. Classically trained.
I just have a theory in my head that you're both frustrated musicians. You said, we can do something with our two incredibly honed talents, which are development and the ability to create beautiful classical music. And this is how Tune.fm was born. You said, screw all of the major producing companies, all of these major music conglomerates, screw all them. We're going to go out there, we're going to make this platform, and we're going to put our beautiful Bach concertos out there for the world. Does that sound maybe about right, or am I just off-piste?
I'd say in a nutshell, a simplification of it for sure. I can sort of tell the origin story if you're interested.
Hear it. Yes, we are interested. The thing is on Crypto and Blockchain Talk, our listeners who are very loyal do love to understand. They want to hear the story behind what is happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this actually started when we were both back in college.
How long ago was that?
So I would say around 10 years ago when we were sort of kicking around these ideas. And so both of us, of course, were violinists, but also we were getting into other genres. And so I got an electric violin. I started playing jazz, started playing with rock bands, started doing all kinds of styles and jamming. And when I got to Brown, I realized that almost every single person who I talked to was a undercover virtuoso musician in one way or another. But it wasn't like we were at a conference with everyone has a name tag and a badge saying, I play the trumpet and I want to join a band, or I'm part of this group and we want to do this. So I was like, well, there's sort of no visibility here. I'm trying to put a group together, maybe join a jam session, who knows, looking for musical opportunities. So I started this thing called Musicians at Brown. And basically just a Google form that people filled out, what instrument they play, what genres they're into, maybe post your MySpace or something, or your SoundCloud. This was a while back, Facebook was out there, but it wasn't, they weren't doing anything in music. And then it sort of blew up overnight. We posted on the announcement bulletin boards, and there was a few thousand people who signed up, and then I gave everyone access to the answer spreadsheet, another Google Doc. And you can see everyone who's live on the document. So it was cool just watching dozens of people at any given time click around and, find people to connect with. And it was sort of we sort of bootstrapped a de facto social network for musicians at Brown. And that's when this idea of maybe there's something here, maybe we should build something started kicking around. And, the alarm bells started going off. Maybe we have something, even though this was just an experiment, and it was really just a tool for me to find other musicians to play music with. And, I had a great time finding people and jamming and playing with all different types of groups. And around the same time, my brother, who's a year older than me, he was at Penn and he was producing a lot of beats and working with local rappers. And he was actually producing some really impressive stuff. So he's like, I don't know how to like get this out there on Spotify didn't even exist at the time. It was like iTunes, and there's all these gatekeepers, and like you need to be on a label, and it's like clearly there's like this is a totally broken system, and there's a few places you can upload to, but nowhere that you can actually earn any money. Like SoundCloud, you could upload it, sure, but like how do I sell these tracks to somebody who wants to produce something with it, for example, and use that to rap on top of? Because a lot of that community is all about using these different stems and splices or beats or samples and putting them together and producing something totally new. There wasn't any sort of marketplace for audio, marketplace for music. So our original vision was sort of like, why don't we create like a global music marketplace and social network anchored around music, and put the artists first and put the artists in charge. So that was an idea that we were just sort of like, yeah, this is something we wanted to do and potentially work together, because we were both interested in music and technology. And also design. I do a lot of like UI design as well. So basically, a few more years went by, and I was working on a lot of different stuff, but I was able to become friendly with a bunch of other engineers at Brown and elsewhere at Penn, and a lot of people were interested in working on something with us, like in the music space. So I was like, well, why don't we just start working on this project? So I started the first startup incubator at Brown called Brown Venture Labs. Basically, there was nothing for startups. Anyone who was a founder doing a startup was sort of under the radar, and then they just dropped out at some point. But there was no like official recognition of this, and that didn't seem right to me, because whenever I would meet a founder and discover what they were doing, I was like super impressed with the initiative, and there's all these other programs for all these things that were less exciting to me in my mind. And I was thinking, why isn't there sort of a grant structure for this? So I was talking to somebody, the Social Innovation Initiative, which is another department thing. He's like, well, we actually have this $100,000 anonymous grant, and we don't know what to do with it. I was like, well, I know what to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll bet you jumped on that like nobody's business.
I was like, I know exactly what to do with it. He's like, well, I was like, we should be funding startups on campus. This is ridiculous. We have no accelerator. We have no incubator. We have nothing. There's StartX at Stanford. There's Tiger Labs at Princeton. There's something at Harvard. I was like going off. I was like, we're behind the curve on this. Like, this is a real thing. Entrepreneurship is like a major business career. Like, it's a career option. Why isn't there a whole entrepreneurship school here? They actually did include entrepreneurship in the name of their business concentration, like business operations and entrepreneurship. So anyway, it's all a lot of academic stuff, but he said, if you can organize the grant program and create a proposal for how this will be doled out and what are the parameters and what the programming is, like what this incubator is and like how it's structured, and you actually do all the work, like I'm happy to let you have this grant and oversee its administration. So I was like, sweet, let's do it. So put together this whole accelerator, and long story short, I was like, well, wait a second. I want to apply with my own music thing. At the time, it was called Hero.fm, Hearo. I was like, I want to do my own music thing. But then there was a conflict of interest that if I'm going to be on the grant committee of picking who gets the grants, and how can I apply to my own grant program? So yeah. I basically took myself off the committee to avoid that, and then applied, and then we got it, obviously. And
well, you know,
but
what?
It was purely
I think that's awesome.
Purely based on merit, of course.
Yes, and of course it is.
I was blown away that over 30 different startup companies, all had like legit teams and building something really cool, applied for this, and 6 were accepted. And I also helped with, putting all the programming together, and now it's actually grown into being a major part of the school. They changed the name to Lab from Brown Venture Labs. It used to be BVL, now it's B Lab. They actually got like $30 or $50 million donation to make a whole new building, and that is the home of B Lab and entrepreneurship is sort of a huge focus now. So I'd like to think that I had some influence on that.
That's
and,
amazing.
Little tidbit. I don't usually tell many people that, but yeah.
Oh, well, don't worry. You've only told 30,000 people. That's okay. So, and growing. It's actually quite interesting because if you were in a sorority or a fraternity, like you get a paddle as a founding father. Yeah. Do you have anything to show that you are kind of like the founding father of something so key and instrumental and, dare I also say, so damned obvious at Brown, which is, by the way, for all the listeners who are in other places around the world, it's what we call in the United States an Ivy League university. And these are where the geniuses are born. So, I mean, obviously, we already knew you were a genius in the first place, Andrew, but the fact that it actually took you to go, duh, we need an incubation lab, look at Harvard, Yale, and named all the other places. I mean, do you have a paddle? I mean, do you have a golden key?
I don't quite have a paddle. I was actually part of AEPI at Brown, and the paddles was like this. It's more of a thing you hang on the wall and put people's names on. I do have like the founding document, which was basically the sort of constitution of this new program. I think I had another word for it, but basically the proposal, and that's what they ended up going with, the whole structure. So yeah, I do have the original documents somewhere on my computer, and yeah, I mean, it was definitely something that was needed, and I felt like, I wanted it myself. And so if Brown is going to be this place where there's all of these creative entrepreneurs, people working on projects, why aren't we recognizing that, funding that, giving them resources, bringing in mentors? We brought in all kinds of mentors and investors and lawyers and founders and all kinds of people to speak, and had really inspiring sessions and program. And now it's just a huge part of the whole school. It's one of their main selling points now. So,
man, you should ask for a percentage of everything. You did it wrong, Andrew. Learn from your mistakes.
Yeah, we did get the grant with no strings attached. So what I really wanted is to create a revolving fund that people can invest in, and alumni can invest in, that could actually invest in these companies for equity. And that's a bit more complicated. And there is an alumni ventures fund that has sort of a Brown thing. But I know there's a lot of different back and forth about the fund, BVLF, the launch fund, and BVL, the Brown Venture Lab. So basically, the launch fund just became this $100,000 grant, and it was like, we're not going to ask for any equity. We're not going to ask for anything. This is a grant to be part of this accelerator program. You get $5,000, and you just do whatever you need to do with it. And we had actually different grant tiers. There was an Explorer grant, $1,000 for somebody who was like, has a great business idea but wants to put a team together, sort of super early stage. And then they also had a summer program that was a bit more involved, because it's like a full-time thing. And yeah, I mean, it really grew into the whole organization, and now there's like faculty and funding and all kinds of things behind it. I was saying I always wanted to take this sort of founder entrepreneurial route, I guess because both my parents are entrepreneurs, so I just sort of always assumed that was the way to do things, and rather than go the traditional finance and consulting and investment banking route that everyone was suiting up and going to these interviews. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to like move out to Silicon Valley and build my startup and see what happens, live the dream. The way I think about, business and approaching things, that it's always, even though it's the longer, harder road, it's always better to have your own company, your own project, and have the equity. It's sort of the longer term investment rather than working for someone.
Absolutely. But, there's more pain with this route. There is.
Oh, yeah. The road less traveled. It's all pain.
Well, exactly. So it is obviously, and no one knows better than the people who actually do it. This road is for the brave, for sure, because you have the highs and the lows, and you got to take the hits, and you have to worry about everybody who works underneath you. But I'm not here to basically frighten you, because there's no way you could be frightened. You've been around for long enough. I know that Tunefm. It's basically a blockchain platform which you guys have built off of Hedera. And by the way, you can correct me on anything you want in just a minute. But it looks like you're using Hedera, and you are using that to basically help artists earn a living by creating music which can be sold on the NFT model as NFT tokens. Is that correct?
Some things, yeah, yes and no. But
I love the yes. Wait. We can't do yes and no. Okay, so I tell you what, I want you.
It's not entirely correct, but some things are correct.
Okay, no. Well, we're not going to do the half correct. I basically then want you now to tell everyone exactly what Tunefm is. And I'll tell you why I'm also asking you this. I've pulled up a couple of articles about Tunefm. And it's a little bit confusing. I'm not going to lie to you. Because in some of these articles, they don't even mention NFTs. It is almost like it's a dirty word and nobody wants to actually talk about it. Then you have other articles which are completely focused on NFTs, and it doesn't talk about the other side of things. On some of them, I can't tell if you're having an ICO, and the other part of them, I don't know what's going on. So I really want you on here to kind of clear up what maybe is being miscommunicated in writing. So go for it, Andrew. Tell us what Tunefm is all about.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot happened in between the time that we were doing the Brown Venture Lab all the way to where we are now. And so the way that things have evolved and developed, I think the date on those articles is probably most important. So only the latest announcement has anything to do with NFTs. And the first thing to clear up is that we're actually not a blockchain, and we're not even building on a blockchain platform, but we are crypto. And the umbrella topic, the mental model I use for this is distributed computing is a paradigm which includes the internet, right? We have different computers all around the world that talk to each other. Distributed ledger technology is the umbrella that encompasses all of crypto, all of tokenization, all of blockchain. So DLT is the real thing that we're in, the space that we're in. And a blockchain is one data structure. And most engineers know there's plenty of different data structures out there for databases and different things and lists and all kinds of stuff. The blockchain is just one data structure that lends itself well to decentralization and distributed ledger technology.
Right.
On the other hand, it's just the first. And there's another one called a DAG, a directed acyclical graph. IOTA, that's a DAG.
Yeah.
So Hashgraph is a data structure that is very similar. It's technically a DAG. It's a different type of DAG, but it has a very elegant consensus algorithm. And without getting too into the weeds of technically how it works, they basically are able to achieve a finality of consensus rather than a probabilistic consensus. So it's not like an arbitrary number of minor confirmations that one would be happy with a 99.9% chance that there was consensus. This is a mathematically provable consensus within seconds. And so what that's called is asynchronous Byzantine fault tolerance, or ABFT for short.
Mm-hmm.
And so how did we come to build on Hedera and Hashgraph? Why did we choose something that a lot of people might not have heard of, that's not even blockchain? There's a lot of confusing stuff. It's really, it's a technological decision, and every day proves to be the right decision. And so sort of backtracking a little bit, just to give the history on how we came to where we are now as a tokenized music marketplace with NFTs. Because we started as a fiat marketplace with credit cards, and that was called Hero.fm. We rented a house, a bunch of our engineer friends, we all lived together. It was sort of like the Facebook movie. Did that, and we built an initial beta product and put it out there and started getting hundreds of artists on board and signing up, doing open mics. And our first angel investor is actually Andy Hertzfeld, co-created the Macintosh with Steve Jobs. He's on the original Mac team. So he's sort of the software wizard who created the modern Mac OS, the first version of it, and a lot of engineers really look up to him. And then we felt that there wasn't enough of a local music community, and we really wanted to go somewhere where we could roots down and that had a lot of musicians. And Austin was sort of calling with South by Southwest, and we did a lot of events there. And so sort of moved everything over to Austin, and that's when we really got thousands and thousands of artists on board. But the whole time, the problems with fiat were nagging us, and the main problem is the fact that It costs 30 cents and 3% to do any transaction. So anything under $5, you're basically losing money. And that's why most convenience stores don't want to use a credit card for anything under $5. And then when we were splitting that $5 up between like 5 different artists' songs that they were selling, it became really problematic. And then merchant cash out to artists is also problematic. And a lot of the tools haven't really been built to accommodate what we wanted to do, even with fiat. And the whole time, like, I've been following Bitcoin since really early, 2010 even. I should be on my own private island if I bought enough. But
I was about to say, where did you go wrong, Andrew?
we mined it on a computer. My roommate had mined it on a computer, and that computer is long gone.
Dude, are you not into dumpster diving? Go find it.
He said he's a data hoarder, and he spent hours searching and all this kind of stuff. And
Jeez.
is my college roommate, and then plus I had Bitcoin on Mt. Gox that got hacked. I had Bitcoin with Butterfly Labs. I had Litecoin on BTCE, which got seized by the FBI. I've sort of been in the crypto game for a long time and been part of all the crazy busts. Everything but buying a ton and self-custodying and holding it.
Right.
Everything. I did everything I shouldn't do in terms of that for Bitcoin. But the reality is that Bitcoin and Ethereum, for that matter, and blockchain is super slow, super inefficient, super expensive. But it serves as a really important sort of thought experiment, or really more than that. It's really the first at-large deployed real-world use of decentralized currency as well as distributed ledger technology in general. And it's pushing forward this distributed computing paradigm. And so when I was looking at, if we want to tokenize this marketplace and offer potentially even micropayments for music streaming or anything, and have payments all be done via tokens, what is the best possible level 1 platform to build on? We don't want to reinvent the wheel, reinvent Bitcoin and stuff like that, or fork something. We looked at forking certain things. So I looked at, the whole Ethereum ecosystem. It's the obvious, first choice, is so many people are building on Ethereum. But then I was also looking at Stellar, I was looking at EOS, looking at Tron. Even Steam had a smart media token thing that they were pushing, but they never ended up building it. So we, I did a deep dive into all these technologies, and it was like, what's possible for us to build, our own sort of media token that we could tie to music streaming, and anything else. And I just kept coming up dry because, Ethereum and Bitcoin taking several hours to process a payment, waiting for minor confirmations and paying $20, $30. That's literally 100 times worse than Visa credit cards, with 30 cents and seconds of settlement. So I was like, we need to be better than Visa, not worse. It's great that it's decentralized, and I'd like to accept Bitcoin, or maybe have people, purchase credits, centralized credits with Bitcoin. Maybe that would be cool. We explored doing credit systems. I was like, the real vision here that we really want is our own native token that has super high throughput. So hundreds of thousands of transactions per second possibility, which Bitcoin is around 5 to 15 transactions per second, and Ethereum is 20 to 30. But with a Web3 dApp, with every click is potentially triggering a whole set of transactions, and you have millions of people concurrently using something, and you have millions of transactions per day. You need something super robust. And if we're transferring fractions of a penny at a time, then clearly fees in the $50, $100 range are just completely not usable. And right now, even with DeFi, just once people start using Ethereum, all these projects become unprofitable. And so we can't have something where the fees are unpredictable based on traffic or, on the network or other people using it. From an enterprise perspective, you can't really plan for that if the pricing is going to change based on factors you have no control over. And so because of that, is one of these things is just sort of, well, I guess we'll just wait for the next round of the next wave of technology that can actually fit our use. Around that time when I was just, I think it was the same week that I just got really upset that SMTs weren't going to be real. I discovered this white paper for the Hashgraph algorithm, which is run by this company called Swirls at the time. It was an 80-plus page white paper, mostly math, and they described a completely different approach to this. And they're like, well, actually, our technology is live, and we're being used by CU Ledger, which is a consortium of banks, of local credit unions that use the Hashgraph algorithm for interbank transfers. And I was like, whoa. So this is actually being used by banks, and nobody knows about it. There's no public ledger. It's like a private ledger at the time, but they're using this algorithm to settle their transactions. So that means that the consensus, you can put money behind it because it's a real consensus. And it turns out that it is an ABFT, mathematically provable consensus, and you can get settlement within 3 to 5 seconds. And they did some stress tests, and they were able to pump like literally up close to 1 million transactions per second through it. Now the quoted amount to be safe, because there's many different nodes, is around 100,000 plus. Mm-hmm. But that's just like several orders of magnitude more advanced than any other blockchain platform that was out there. So you get all the benefits of blockchain and encryption and permissionless and all this, but super high throughput and low fees. And I was like, well, when's the public ledger coming out so I can actually use this? And they're like, well, just, stay tuned. Maybe next few months. I'm like, okay. So I kept talking to some of the, like the chief architect and some of the executives there and the people, and just trying to understand how the technology works at like a very base level. Like I really wanted to get to the bottom of why this is a more elegant solution for DLT than blockchain, because it's a big jump to tell people, oh, we're not even blockchain, but you might consider us blockchain because that's the word used for the whole space. But it's really crypto and DLT. And so they finally launched the Hedera public ledger in New York in 2018. And this was sort of a little like the crypto craze was going on at the time, and they were still not even out. They weren't going for a money grab. They actually they launched in the middle of crypto winter. But at the same time, they raised $124 million from private investors.
Jeez.
It's like, okay,
wow.
Whoa. Most of these projects are raising a few million and then they disappear. It's like, exit scams. And some of the other projects, even the super legit protocols, like 20, 30, 50 million tops, nobody's raising over 100 million and nobody hears about it. So but this is a legit raise and it's all private placement. So I was pretty impressed by that as well. And so they invited me to speak at their first developer conference, Hedera 18. So if you check out music streaming for Hedera for music streaming micropayments, I spoke at Hedera 18 about our vision of building a micropayments marketplace using tokenization on Hedera Hashgraph. And so at the time, they had just announced that they were going to support the Ethereum virtual machine. So you could use the entire ecosystem of Solidity, smart contracts, any tool that was sort of built on Ethereum, ported over to Hedera and sort of have the superior level 1 backbone. And with Ethereum, everyone was just complaining at the time, and still now it's even louder, the scalability solutions, the layer 2 solutions. Maybe one day Vitalik will release Ethereum 2. Maybe it'll be proof of stake. God knows. But it costs $50 to $350 to mint an NFT today. And most artists that I know can't afford that. Even artists who do art for a living. Like, that's a lot of money to invest in some totally unknown thing. You don't know if anybody's going to pay you for it. As a rhetorical, it shouldn't cost $350, but on Ethereum it does.
I decided to buy an NFT on OpenSeas myself.
Sweet.
It's not a sweet story. $200
wow.
on gas fees.
There you go. That's the problem.
And by the way, it was on an auction. I didn't even win, and I'm out over $200 on.
That's horrible, and
I've been screwed, man. I've been screwed.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, my friend from Brown is the CEO of OpenSea, Devin Finzer. And I know him because I helped recruit him be the CTO for another startup. But anyway, long story short, he is running OpenSea's largest NFT marketplace, but it's all based on Ethereum. And that's really what I see is the core underlying problem. I haven't really discussed this with him at all. But and I wouldn't say anything bad about them. I think OpenSea is probably one of the best interoperable platforms, and we'll definitely be building an integration with them for our NFTs. But with that said, we actually went down this rabbit hole with Hedera of building smart contract-based tokens on Hedera. So we're the first to actually build a smart contract-based token on Hedera ever. And this is like a few months after they first launched the public network. And they announced that they could have smart contracts. Because at the time, there was no native token service like there is today. So at the time, the only way to even have tokenization was the way you do tokenization on Ethereum, which is through ERC-20 smart contracts or ERC 1115 or 1115 or ERC 721. And so they have all these standards for creating tokens, but they're all smart contract-based tokens. And even EOS is a smart contract-based token. But when you go to that next level of abstraction, you actually lose things. So smart contracts are slower. The smart contract itself has to maintain the state of every single wallet's balance, and that's sort of how it works. And so when we built the first smart contract token on Hedera, it was sort of a modified version of the ERC-20 protocol, which we could call HRC-20. But we built a lot of Hedera-specific technology for that. And then we announced that we were able to bring on live Beyonce instrumentals on our platform through a partnership with Music World Entertainment, which was owned by Matthew Knowles, her father, and he has 4 labels, and we're able to get all that content on board. And there's an article about it on Decrypt. And basically we maxed out the smart contract to the point where we broke the system in a simple term, but really we maxed out the state size of the smart contract on Hedera. And then we found out that because Hedera is not a blockchain and it works differently from Ethereum, Ethereum smart contracts don't have this state limit because they can sort of grow indefinitely, but then you run into other problems like state bloat, where things can slow down and things can get more expensive the more and more people are using it. Whereas the state limit here was to prevent attack vector and keep consensus to a certain threshold. And so went back to the drawing board, and we created an entirely new protocol for sharding smart contracts, so scalable smart contracts with tokens on Hedera, where we have a parent smart contract that wraps child smart contracts and scale it up. But the whole time I was thinking, like, look, these smart contracts are a disaster. Nobody wants smart contracts if you can have a native token that does all the same stuff, like HBAR is the native token for Hedera. So essentially I was talking to the product director of product at Hedera and talking about this is something I'd like to see. And right around the time when we were finishing up the smart contract sharded version, he was like, okay, just so you know, like, we're going to launch this HTS, the Hedera token service, which will allow you to actually do what you're saying, which is the native token. So I was like, that's the best news I've heard all year. And we're going to be the first to launch a native token on Hedera with no smart contracts. And the reason that's like super important is because now we can actually realize our original full vision of micropayments and NFTs. So the Hedera token service actually supports NFTs out of the box. And NFTs is, so fungibility is sort of more of a sliding scale. Like if you have a one-of-one supply with no decimals, that's a one-of-one NFT. Or the JAM token, so our sort of our native base currency is basically 8 decimals and a billion total supply.
Right.
But you could have a one-of-one with fractional ownership, so 1 decimal. You could have 10 of 10 with no fractional. You could have 1,000 for a concert, So it's really up to the artist to determine what types of experiences they want to offer, whether it's digital assets, so whether it's a sort of exclusive ticket to a live performance, or they can tie it to a physical good, or a file like a JPEG, or just sort of a large album art type thing, or they can tie it directly to the audio itself on our platform with a limited audio release. And they can also bundle in real world experiences like front seats for life, the phone number of the artist, Skype with the artist for the show, any number of experiences that they want to offer.
I think at this point, what I should do is I just want to explain to the listeners so it's very, very clear. The Hashgraph is a DLT, but it's not a blockchain. So even though it's possible that we can compare blockchain and Hashgraph because we can base it on the three main aspects of data storage, data structure, and protocols, I just want to make it very clear to the listeners between blockchain and Hashgraph. Blockchain implies basically the storage of transaction records in a block, and that includes the current hash and timestamps, and as well as the transaction from the preceding block. And if you don't know about blockchain, we of course just go back in the history of the podcast and you can listen to what the blockchain is. On the other hand, Hashgraph, it stores data in the form of an event, and this contains the timestamps and transactions along with the hashes, and you can view the history of these transactions in a graph. So that is kind of the difference. So they're both under the DLT heading, as it was explained by Andrew in the beginning, but it is not a blockchain. Okay, so now that we've made that clear, I feel a little bit guilty. I really didn't know you were going to know the guy from OpenSea, but...
No worries, it's just a coincidence.
This is a horrible coincidence because one of the things I was going to talk to you about was that there's two really big problems going on with NFTs, which many people are not talking about. One of them being the situation that happened to me personally, which is
awful.
Which is more than awful. I mean, I have really been done over. And, 99% of my life is telling people how to avoid being scammed. I mean, a lot of our free stuff, including these podcasts, the radio station, a lot of the stuff that I write online, it's about the books, 7 books I've published on how not to get scammed, how to use blockchain, how to use AI and all this stuff.
And you feel scammed at this moment, right?
Oh, that's not even the worst of it. I have a really good friend who also bought an NFT, and after purchasing the NFT, it's disappeared. So money for nothing also bought on OpenSea. So I have to tell you, I hate OpenSea. And what's even more important is that, these are some serious things. And if the whole NFT space is going to go somewhere, these are pretty serious things that need to be addressed. Because let me tell you something. Yeah. People have been buried in the desert for less than $200 US. And and my friend paid $750 for this NFT, which is now gone. Okay, it's just disappeared.
So was it lost because it was hyperlinked to a centralized link that basically went offline?
I will have to link you in with my friend who can tell you basically, but there's no history of ever owning it, purchasing it, nothing. It's gone.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is a massive problem, and the NFT space runs the risk of getting a bad rap the way that ICOs did in 2017.
Exactly. And guess what?
Yeah.
I did a podcast on NFTs. We've done a couple of them now. Because, it's such a big space and a lot of people are paying a lot of money. Some of it I'm wondering how legit the whole transaction is, because I'm just thinking to myself, I don't know what's going on here because I'm pretty smart at this stage. I say that, but yet I got screwed. But, the funny thing is that for these kinds of things to be happening, I'm really unhappy. I'm an unhappy customer. How are you going to make sure on Tune.fm, how are you going to make sure that, number one, no one's going to get punished when they're purchasing? And now I know you've kind of addressed this already, but I want a succinct answer on how you're going to make sure that people aren't going to get punished for buying the original art from other talented artists. And number two, how can you ensure that once somebody buys something, it will be there until the end of time? That it's not just a certificate pointing to a URL, that this is something where they have the actual ownership of that code.
Yep. 100%. So we actually solve all of these problems. I know it's a lot to say, But by the virtue of the fact that we've built our token and all of our NFTs will be minted through the Hedera token service, we're talking about minting fees on the order of a few pennies at most, and transactions of trading them on the order of 1/100th or 1,000th of a penny in terms of the gas, which is paid in tiny bar, which is like a Satoshi equivalent for H bar. So there's, it's actually, it really upsets me that to hear these stories, because I only really knew from the artist side of artists getting screwed. And when artists get screwed, that really hits hard, because we're here for the artists. And if artists are having to pony up hundreds of dollars, which is like literally the food they need to eat, and then they just get screwed, and nobody either nobody buys their NFT or it just sits there. So I was talking to a friend who's like a really good oil painter, and he was looking at NFTs. He's like, I wanted to mint my first NFT, and then once I realized it was going to cost me $300-$400, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to wait on this.
Yeah.
But then on your side, on the buy side, like the fact that you lost $200 for buying an NFT that you didn't end up winning because it got traded away, or just to put it in a bid, I mean, that's obscene. I mean, to lose money and not even be able to get anything for it. And then it's even worse when you do win that NFT and you bought the NFT and then the digital asset itself is swiped away.
Yeah.
I mean, that is like a complete horror show. And I'm personally appalled. And you know what? Maybe I'll reach out to Devin and ask him about these issues. But OpenSea did just raise the $23 million Series A, so they're doing just all right. Probably pretty busy over there.
Well, you know why they raise that kind of money? Because they got those poor schmucks like me who are giving up all this money, and my other half is dealing with it now. It's a good thing he loves me, because many people also have been divorced for much less. And, you know, the funny thing is that he is now, he also told me that OpenSea's customer service basically sucks a big one. And so so you know, I don't care. I don't even normally use this language, but I mean, I'm like Judge Judy. If you try to screw me over, I'm coming for you. So I'm not exactly too happy. I mean, that's a lot of money. It is a lot of money. Do you know, in some places in the world, that is literally like their entire year's salary. And, you know, I really wanted to buy this piece of art for a very personal reason for my other half. So maybe that's also why he understood. By the way, I told the artist. I did tell the artist. I said, listen, artist, I just want to let you know what happened. And now we're buddies.
I send you a copy of that piece of art.
Well, I wouldn't take it. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I would never, even if he had suggested, look, I'm going to send you something, I would have said, that's not what, you know, I just want you to beware of what just happened, because, you know, can you imagine if I really I mean, I wouldn't have done it anyway. But can you, like, obviously, if I needed food on the table for my kid, I'm not going to go spend it on a freaking, you know, NFT. But I mean, but the thing is that what I'm afraid of is kind of like the ICOs, you know, when we're in the real scam phase, that people are going to start pouring things in. Because obviously the other thing is, I thought I was going to, just like every other person who buys an NFT, I thought I was going to invest in an NFT, give it to my other half as a gift that would go up in value. Yeah. And do you know what I'm left with? I'm left with hot air and poor customer service. And I don't even know if it's been resolved yet. But to be quite frank with you, all I know is that I only have 30,000 people who listen to this within the first week of release. And then we have something like 90,000 people who listen to it on the radio. They probably don't care. You know, they're probably doing well enough, and, you know, thank you very much. But I am really unhappy, and he may hear about it anyway. So all I could say is I want you to make sure that Tune.fm does not go down this very sticky road. It's such, you sound like a good guy. You sound like an Avenger. I'd like to think I'm an Avenger. You know, well, depending on which Avenger, people can argue that they're either good or bad. But you know what I mean. I mean, you know, you sound like one of the good guys. The other thing is that you talked about, in a way, like fractionalizing some of the music and stuff. Are you in any way worried with the statements that have come out from the SEC stating that any kind of fractionalized or secondhand NFTs are have a possibility of being counted as a security?
There's definitely a regulatory risk to anything in this space. And thankfully, we're working with some of the best legal representation on this who happens to also represent, other big players in the space. I don't know if I can publicly say who, but basically they're in, direct connection with the SEC around all these issues. And really the bottom line is if you operate in good faith and do your best effort to follow the guidelines that are there, because it is a legal gray area and there are many areas that have not really been regulated, and it's sort of a wait and see. Let's see how this pans out. There's sort of a loose safe harbor with some restrictions. But in many cases, we're educating the regulators on how to correctly regulate this. And the regulators really only care about protecting U.S.-based investors. So if things can be played out overseas and try things out, that's fine, and that can help your case when trying to operate in the U.S. But we're a U.S.-based company. We have U.S.-based investors. We have U.S. users. So we have to be super careful and do everything the right way. And if there isn't a right way defined, then we have to get the best advice from the people who are talking to the people who will be defining that right way. Our model is to create an entire music economy, a global music economy. And that music economy, the baseline currency, which is the fungible currency, is the Jam token, which is a native token on Hedera. And so the Jam token is essentially like the global reserve currency for the music economy, and everything in the marketplace is denominated in Jam. Now, Jam can, in the future, be traded out to fiat, sure. But everything in terms of music streaming, as well as purchasing NFTs, as well as minting NFTs, all will be paid in Jam within our ecosystem. So essentially, artists can pay a very small fee in Jam, equivalent of like less than $1 versus hundreds of dollars, to mint their set of NFTs. And then they can be bought, sold, and traded by the users using the Jam token. So they would essentially buy those NFTs with Jam.
So you're saying basically the Jam token acts as the smart contract, and they can then use this for streaming, for tickets, for merchandise, etc.
Yeah, so our tagline, our motto is when the music gets played, the artist gets paid. We're here to...
Ooh, that's a nice little tagline. Say it again.
Yeah.
We're going to put some music behind that, I think.
Oh, yeah. When the music gets played, the artist gets paid.
Oh, well, that's a sexy strap line. Look at that, folks. You see, he went to Brown. That's where you learn how to do that. So, okay.
It's funny. I said that one day in the middle of, like, one of my pitches, and it's different every time. But, like, somebody was like, ooh, I like that. I was like, oh, I guess that rhymed. Okay, I'll remember that one for later.
Well, that should be an NFT right there. So,
yeah,
absolutely. Listen, if Charmin, the toilet paper people can do it, you can do it. You're using your platform to level the playing field. You want to reward the creators directly. The artists, of course, are going to control their rights. You're cutting out the middleman, and this is the last piece, enabling artists to earn a living. How do you really see artists earning a living out of this? Because one of the biggest parts of being an artist, it doesn't matter what you're doing, as I've proven many times before, is the marketing. Marketing is the only thing. It really is. You don't have good marketing, you've got nada. You've got nothing. And like you just said yourself before, when we were talking about OpenSea, when we were talking about OpenSea, you said yourself, there's a bazillion artists out there all screaming in the same space. It's all white noise. And the only people, in my opinion, who are being seen are Beeple, and Beeple. Oh, and whoever the hell Mark Cuban likes this week, which, by the way, just turns me off completely. But that's another topic. It's not even Beeple, it's Sheeple. People are just, for some reason, following.
Beeple for the Sheeple.
It really is. It's just, and the poor guy, the artist himself apparently said, I don't even understand why people like my art. I don't even see what's in it. Like this kind of quote. So, the question, I guess, is how are you going to help these artists actually earn a living if Tune.fm all of a sudden gets so crowded and, quite frankly, also full of shite, where literally you have someone going, oh, my child is so, listen, I don't, and by the way, I don't want any emails, people. I understand that your children are very talented and they make beautiful music, or you think you do, or whatever it is that you think is beautiful and should be heard by the world. Not everything that's created is worth hearing. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. These are basic tenements of humanity. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should sell it as an NFT. And, so what's going to stop you from having, like Lily Lulu's second birthday album? On the, where, you've got some kid with a pan and a wooden spoon banging it continuously for 3 hours. I mean, how are you vetting this out and how are you marketing these artists?
Yeah, you bring up a lot of really great points, and I agree with all of them. And so, and at the end of the day, our mission statement is to help artists earn a living. And the fact that artists can't earn a living, or at least at 99%, is a great injustice, not only to art, but those people and those creators. But how to actually get there is very difficult. So all the tech aside, like how is that even possible? It's not some sort of redistribution program. It's sort of, we're talking about broken markets and old paradigms, legal framework don't work for the new technology, and licensing structures. For example, like the music in the U.S. that's licensed for the U.S. is a completely different silo of music that's in India or Brazil or anywhere else in the world, in China. So there's, even from the listening perspective, you might think you have everything with Spotify, but it's actually a very tiny percentage of what's out there. There's a whole world of music out there. Music is a universal language, but it's licensed in a way that's based on, dinosaur, like literally records and radio, terrestrial radio, and that's how these legal frameworks, they came from those older technologies. So to push it forward, with tokenization, which allows micropayments, and that's only possible with the Hashgraph algorithm and our native token. So we can actually pay artists for every second of their music that's streamed. So if your song is 5 minutes or a minute and a half, however much was streamed by that listener gets paid directly to the artist with no intermediary, no middleman. So right now, all the streaming revenue, it goes to the publishers and master right holders, and the artist ends up with 10% or less, sometimes 6 months to over a year later, because it takes so long to process those payments. And so we flip that model on its head, where the artist keeps 90%, and us, the service provider, is essentially the treasury gets 10%, and that goes right back out to incentivize new artists to sign up and reward artists for uploading. But to your point about marketing, that's the most important thing. So just like Facebook has this whole ads marketplace and all of their revenue is by selling ads, we were very clear up front. We don't want to have ads everywhere, banner ads. We don't want to make this some sort of very messy place where everyone's trying to sell something. We want it to be focused around music. But if you think about it, music itself is something that can be promoted. So the ad creative is really just the actual song. And that first stream of a new fan, say I release an album or a song, and there's 10 million people out there who have never heard my music, I might think it's the best music in the world, and those 10 million people would love it. But if they have no opportunity to listen to it or discover it, they're never going to hear it. So we allow the artists to market their own music by investing their jam that they earn into getting new fans in their first stream. So new fan who's never heard that song, never heard that artist, streaming it for the first time. So if that fan likes it, they love the song, then they'll stream it again and again and again, and that'll pay a return on the investment to the artist. If the fan doesn't like it, after 10 seconds, they'll probably switch to the next thing. But that fan only gets paid for the amount of seconds exactly that they spend listening to that promoted track. So from a music fan perspective, there will be a whole pool of music that you could just earn money all day listening to. But if you actually like what you're listening to and listen to it again and discover that artist's other songs that are not being promoted and maybe stream the album 10 times, that's paying all out right to the artist. And the artist is keeping 90%, which is 8 to 10 times more than they would they would earn otherwise on Spotify. And so there's ways that both the fans can earn, and a big part of that is curation. So everything on our platform is algorithmically curated, and that's driven by user input. So songs that get more streams in a shorter period of time and more likes and more reviews and more engagement, they chart higher and they get higher scores within that time period. And so the algorithm is constantly surfacing new things. We even have a map feature. You can jump all the way around the world and go into local music communities and discover stuff that way. And so we really want to be open to anyone to upload anything, but we don't want to allow DMCA violations like somebody uploading an MP3 of a Jay-Z song. 90% of music platforms ran into that problem and had to shut down. Like a lot of music startups, there's dead bodies everywhere.
Yeah, because of sampling. Because people are constantly ripping each other off and having copyright issues. And copyright issues are right now, they are rife through the NFT industry.
Oh, yeah. Lawyers are freaking out. But we actually solved the problem for DMCA because we only accept lossless, uncompressed masters that have been created directly from the digital audio workstation production software, the DAWs like Pro Tools and Logic and others. So and these master files, like when a label has the master rights, these masters are sealed in like hermetically sealed. There are these hermetically sealed chambers underground with armed guards. It's like a big deal guarding these files in the major labels. But the major labels combined, all big three, have only around 7,000 to 8,000 artists total. There's about 35 million songs out there on the licensed music marketplace, but the majors actually only make a small percentage of that, and we already have more artists than all the majors combined on our platform. So not to say that we've invested the same amount of marketing dollars into our artists, but that's a different story. One day it'll be an order of magnitude more than what the major labels can invest. But since we only accept these lossless masters, there's just a limited supply, and generally the artists themselves or the recording engineer or the recording studio are the only ones who have access to these files to begin with. So
that's actually really interesting. But couldn't you guys have done some kind of integration like with SoundHound, where the minute that somebody uploads a song, it would be auto-matched almost by some AI nuances who would say, okay, there's
the EcoNest is API behind all that sort of fingerprinting technology Shazam and SoundHound uses, and that's an additional layer of protection that we're going to add in, but we've never had a violation and never had anyone uploading something that wasn't theirs because they simply just can't get access to it.
So who is now, okay, so you've obviously done, are you through with your investment rounds? Are you done?
No, we're actually raising a round right now, actually, an equity round. And
Do you want to tell us more about that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so we've raised like around $800K to date through various angels and convertible notes and over, several years, and we, to build what we have now, which is the music streaming platform with micropayments and streaming, and now we're building the NFT minting services and all of these new cool things and social audio experiences. Anyway, back to the round. Right now we're raising, so we're no longer doing any token sales. There is no token sale, and I'm not doing any public sale of any tokens or anything, but we do happen to be doing a traditional seed round equity, and we're basically raising 1.5 million at this moment, and that's going to be able to take us to the next stage of listing on various exchanges, international exchanges, pushing out a lot of new product features, really focusing on some celebrity artists to do some NFT drops, and all the sort of development and marketing that we need to do to get to the next level, and which we'll probably raise another round at that point. I don't know exactly when.
I'm just going to let you know that I am going to be testing out your platform because I happen to have an album, and
Cool.
And it's all original, and it's called Crypto Christmas. And Crypto Christmas, many people do know our music because our music is streamed onto our radio station, and I couldn't find any crypto-themed music, and it was during Christmas. So I came out with crypto-themed songs, but they're not really there for the voice. I mean, it's not that bad. I mean, I don't think many people have poked their ears out yet, with a knitting needle. But what I will tell you is that My song list is things like "Oh Transfer Fee" instead of "Oh Christmas Tree," "SEC to the World" instead of "Joy to the World." So and Good King Nakamoto. So I have a lot of, so I have 14 songs on my album, and I'm going to actually upload these to your to your platform, sir.
Nice.
And I am going to test this baby out myself.
Please.
And of course, I'm going to give you feedback. So,
Love it.
yes. Well, I hope you do. All I have to say to you is the following. I am really very happy that you came on to Crypto and Blockchain Talk. How was your experience today, sir?
So far, so good. I had a lot of fun chatting with you.
Yeah, it's been really great. I have to say again, you have this amazing project. I don't think you have any fears. You can sleep very well. You will certainly raise all the money through every investment round you will ever have. I just feel it. I have a feeling. And so far, knock on wood, I have always been right. So on that note, I would like to thank you so much, Andrew, for coming on to Crypto and Blockchain Talk.
Thank you so much, and looking forward to hearing your music streaming on Tune.fm, and hopefully you can earn some jam tokens.
Well, I am looking forward to that, and I hope I'm jamming all the way to the top of the charts. On that, right. Yeah, thanks. On that note, I'd like to just thank everyone for tuning into this week's Crypto and Blockchain Talk. Please don't forget to tell your friends and family to download us on one of the many podcasting platforms that we have listed on cryptoandblockchaintalk.com. That's cryptoandblockchaintalk.com. And I said that again for Andrew's benefit because I didn't know if he knew where he was today. So on top of that as well, you can always contact us through the normal social media platforms of Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, but we love to hear from you directly. So please email us at education@savvy, SAVII digital.com. That's education@savvydigital.com. Don't forget as well, these beautiful interviews and news and music are streamed also onto our sister radio station, Crypto 24 Radio. That's Crypto24radio.com, playing 24/7 around the world. Again, I just want to thank everyone for tuning in. We know that you have a huge myriad of choices. There's a huge number of podcasts out there. And when you tune into us, we really do appreciate it. So please take care, be safe, and goodbye for now.